Hey guys, welcome back to another live stream. So it's been a little while and I am taking off in the very near future. So I figured I would just do a live stream, catch up with you guys, see what's going on. So if you could hear me once people start showing up, just let me know. I figured I'd do a little writer's commentary or director's commentary or whatever you want to do for Soulfinder for a tad, and then we can go into bounding into comics. I can answer any sort of questions that you have along the way. Whatever works for me. I'm cool with whatever. So we are now officially live. That is good. And all right, looks like people are already tuning in here. Lorenzo, thanks for tuning in. Tillium, thank you very much. Loud and clear. All right, so I will just monitor your comments, and then I will go from there. The Real Comic Stacks is here. Long story short, I am going to the Philippines for a while, and I will be back later in January. I'll be here for most of the day tomorrow. I got to work for a little bit, but then I got to get my stuff together, and then I'm flying out. And my wife is like, she's like, I don't know if you should be broadcasting that we're actually leaving because some people might have our address and this and that. I don't have anything worth stealing. I mean, I did, like, if you want to steal my books that are back here, like, that's fine if you want to break in, but I don't really have anything that's super valuable. I'll just put it that way. So I guess I have some comic books. So if somebody wants to break in and they want to find my comic books, I guess those are kind of expensive, but I'll live if somebody robs us while we're gone. Not too scared about that. Been getting out Soulfinder books as well. I thought I got all of the ones I needed to out before we left. Of course, there was one I did not get in terms of international customers that already paid. So there's one left. I'll probably get to that guy tomorrow. I was irritated with myself. But orders for Soulfinder are coming in, and I am getting my 1,000 extra copies apparently on January 21st, which is, I will just, after I get back from overseas, they will arrive. So all that is going quite well. Are you going on vacation? That's an interesting question. I am actually meeting Wes from Thinking Critical on the very last day, and we are going to meet up. I'm meeting his family, and we're going to hang out for a little bit. And then I invited Wes, or actually the people that we were staying with invited Wes and his family to eat dinner with everybody. But I will be doing a certain, I guess I'll be working to some extent while I'm over there. But if I share some pictures, you'll know. But I am doing some work, and I guess I'm doing some play simultaneously. So the comic book here says, hello, first Muppet. Hello, Comic Book Hut. Let's see what else. Let's see, looking forward to getting a copy. Yeah, I will definitely get you a copy. There's a lot of international. I've put a huge dent in all the international guys and gals. So yeah, let's see. Can't stay, need sleep, stopping by. Is AL. Thanks for tuning in. The Lugia, what's up? Bianca, hello. Everybody else who's tuning in, appreciate it. So cool. As I randomly see things, we'll just go with the flow, basically. I really just wanted to say that, yes, I am still around. I've been busy. I've been writing the script for Soulfinder. I've been, that's my my book that I'm reading. There's a book that I'm doing research for the book. So that is not in here. No, it is not in here. And so I've been very busy, but everything is coming together. So I guess I will start. If you have any questions, so spoiler. If you have not read Soulfinder, then there might be some spoilers in the next, I don't know, we could talk. I'll just go with the flow. So you definitely have a good team for Soulfinder. Yeah, for the next one, Timothy Lim will be back in a reduced capacity as he concentrates on, obviously, his own intellectual properties. But there's plenty of ways that he said that he would help out. Brett R. Smith wants to come back. And then Matt Weldon will be the artist on this one. I have reached out to Dave Dorman, and hopefully if he is willing and his schedule will work, I know he's a very busy guy, I'm going to try and get Dave for another cover, but if not, I totally understand because he's very busy. He's obviously a very skilled guy, but Dave did our cover. He did 2 covers for us. So this was the first. We wanted to sort of, I should say in particular, I wanted to send a message that this was going to be a more serious book right from the get-go. And because this was my first foray into the arena of independent comic books, I wanted to make sure that I made a statement with the cover. Boom. And one way to do that is with Dave Dorman. And so Tim had introduced me to Dave Dorman, and he was explaining the concept for the book, combat veterans who become exorcists. In fact, a major order of exorcists. Dave was on board with that and said he would do the covers. He would do 2 for us. And that's where that came from. So I was very happy with that. We'll just go through all these. Now, this is actually Tim's idea right here. The 6, to set the stage, the 6 extraordinary forms of demonic activity. 1, possession. 2, obsession. 3, oppression. 4, infliction. 5, infestation. And 6, subjection. And then the biblical quote here, watch and pray that you may not undergo the test. And obviously translations vary. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. All right, so it's from Matthew. Tim was the one who came up with this, and he sent me this one day, and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And so this was his idea right here. And this is why I liked working with Tim, especially since he is a practicing Catholic. He was able to come up with little things like this. And so I was like, this will, for people that are not Catholic, if you're agnostic, if you're atheist, you don't know about this sort of stuff. And so it's just, again, setting the stage, and very happy with Tim's idea there. Let's see. Clinging Mars says, evening, Doug. We haven't started World War III yet. God is good. Yeah, we could talk about the Iranian stuff if you want as well. So we'll see how that goes. I'm generally not inclined to think the world wants to go to war over Iran, and but I could be wrong. I am not making any predictions, but I just don't see them. I see them as a regional power. I don't see them. Well, we won't get too into that. But I mean, this book here definitely deals with war and the effects of war on the mind, body, and spirit. And so this was the first page that I had in mind, this particular image. So again, in addition to the cover, I wanted to just make a statement. And in terms of the tone of the book, where we are going, this is not a happy-go-lucky sort of book. There's humor here and there in the book, but I wanted it to be very serious. Mike McNulty is here. Mike read the first draft and gave feedback. Let's see. Mike says, hey, Doug, just wanted to write in and say, I got my signed copy, and wow, the photos didn't do it justice because the physical copy looks fantastic with quality binding, square binding, and paper too. Well done. Thanks, Mike. And Mike, thank you for being one of the few people that got to see the first draft. So, okay. So I wanted to set this stage, and this was the image that came to mind. I wanted to show, obviously, that he was a veteran, that he has gone through the gauntlet, and literally he went through the fires, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and then he came out with his faith intact. And so that's where we fast forward in time. And so actually in the other, it asks at the very start of this is, why do bad things happen to good people? So we could go back to Job for people that wonder those sorts of things. I was actually talking to my mom today about Job. So sometimes my mom and I have spiritual conversations. And so that's what it starts out. And it's this particular woman, Charlotte. Father Redder rolls up his sleeves. You could see his scars from war, obviously. So those are hidden. And when he rolls them up, you could see them. You could also see there's a scar that goes up on his neck as well. And actually, during there was a couple times where Tim, I don't think he would mind me saying this, within the process, there was like the little scar that like, it's like a peekaboo scar. It sticks up, and I called it like I think I called it like an iceberg scar as well. He forgot the iceberg scar, and I was like, Tim, you got to get the iceberg peekaboo scar in there. And so obviously his entire left side of his body has been burned. And so it's like, it gives it an idea. It's like, oh, you could see like, oh, something happened to him from a distance, and you're like, I wonder what happened there. But really, the person does not see that underneath his clothes, he is incredibly scarred, and he actually has a prosthetic limb as well below the knee, which you do not see until later on in the book. So we get to meet Father Redder, and let's see. Any men attacking tanks? How people are still talking about Iran there. There are no good people. At least that's what Job realizes. Let's see. Then we fast forward in time. Not fast forward really, but introduction to Stapleton, Maryland, and small little fictional town. In Maryland, if you know your history, Maryland itself was kind of like where Catholics congregated, no pun intended, but that is where a lot of Catholics went early on in our nation's history. And so I thought that Maryland would be a good place to have this fictional town. And so you could see, obviously, the church there, and an introduction to Officer Chua. Now, in the next one, so this was not actually clear as much exactly what kind of, like, he's a beat cop, like what exactly. I didn't get too into that with this one, but in the next one, you will see that he has essentially been assigned to Father Redder, and so it's like he's almost like a plainclothes cop at when the next one comes around. He's been dealing with Father Redder with the supernatural, and it's like they are essentially like a team. So that's where we will enter into the second one. But Officer Chua is Filipino. He's half Filipino and he's half Chinese, which is interesting. And I didn't necessarily do this on purpose, but after I thought about it, I was like, that's interesting, because Tim is actually the same. He's got the same heritage as Officer Chua. And like I said, I'm actually going to the Philippines this week. And in addition to some of the stuff that I'll be doing over there, I will be doing some research that will get into Officer Chua's origins as well. So there was some stuff in the script to this one, but I actually chopped a little bit of the script that beefed up Officer Chua, and but we will return to that in the next one. So he comes in. This is another one. Tim designed this kind of this little intro here. He just had free reign to do whatever he wants. So I thought this was kind of sharp, kind of classy at the bottom there, and fits the style of the book quite nicely. There's a series of murders and mysteries, deaths in the town that are related to this supernatural stuff. And that's where, again, he sees Father Redder. He explains what's going on. We won't get into all the details. This veteran's got the Necros tattoo going on. Tim is cool to talk to. Yeah, Tim's pretty laid back. I think he had a stream earlier tonight with a bunch of guys. I think Nurkish was there, Doug Tenaple, obviously Mark Pellegrini. I just saw it pop up, but I was doing stuff, so I couldn't really listen. But so, okay, well, we're going on. And obviously, so in this particular fictional town, the cops want to keep this under the radar, the supernatural stuff. So people know that the supernatural is real, more real than maybe most people actually understand or fathom or whatever. But they don't want to make this a big public deal. So it's kind of under wraps for the most part. And let me see here. All right, then, here's another one. So Clausewitz Mortuary. If you are a military veteran, you would get that I don't want to say it's an Easter egg, but if you're into military strategy on war, that is the name of the mortuary there. So it actually has to deal with war and death and bringing that in there. So a lot of people would not, maybe if you were like a Marine, Marines in particular, usually will cite Uncle Carl. And, but so that's where that sort of came in as well. That was a little nod to that. And Stapleton, Maryland, they're in Lewis County. I think that was also, it was alluded to. I think at one point in time, somebody, Officer Chua or maybe Father Redder, says LCPD. It's for Lewis County Police Department. So that is a little hat tip to C.S. Lewis. And so there is another one. There's all these sort of like nods. So he wants to go figure out what's going on with this veteran who died. He goes to the mortuary, and there's this guy Zub. And actually, when I was in the military years ago, there was a guy called Zub, and I always liked that. And so I went with Zub, but he doesn't look like this individual. Anyway, this is how he gets in. Computer robots and wows. Thanks for tuning in. Hey String says, loving the book. Thank you very much. And let's see. So he comes in and he wants to look at this. You can see that he's kind of like he likes his snacks quite a bit. So Tim came up with the idea of having him come in with some Cheetos and sort of like almost as like his little, hey, I'm a nice guy. I don't want to say bribe per se, but like, I mean, well, but also since he's a veteran, he says like, hey, I'm just, here to check out, a brother in arms. And this particular guy, Zub, does not like Father Redder. We'll put it that way. But he lets him in and gives him a little heads up. And that's where we introduce the matches. And when you strike these matches, anyone who's read the book already, you know that you were essentially taken to this like psychic realm, spiritual realm, that where you are on the demon's turf. So let's see. Comics, Movies, Games says, hi, Doug. Long time no see. I wish you a Happy New Year. Thank you very much. Health, happiness, and success. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So Father Redder, one of the things that I liked about having a priest as a character is if you are a priest, you meet people from all different backgrounds. Those are the ones that come to you on a regular basis. And so you would have a very large network of individuals. And because you attend weddings, because you attend funerals, all this sorts of stuff, you would have access to individuals who could help you. So if there was a mystery, there can be someone introduced in the congregation who could give him a plausible reason or a way to get that expertise that he needs. So obviously, if there's something with teachers or college professors, blah, 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 there can be somebody who attends his church, St. Michael's, that would allow me that sort of springboard to get him to where he needs to be. Let's see, Douglas, how is the trip? If any, I have not gone on my trip yet. I am leaving this week. I'll be here tomorrow for most of the day, and then I'm leaving Thursday. So, all right. So he gets a little heads up. Then he goes to investigate another death. And so somebody was actually asking me, they wrote me, and they were wondering about the library. They were like, why were the librarians in like Halloween costumes? And the answer is because it was Halloween. And so on different holidays at libraries, they usually do something associated with the holiday. So if you didn't see it, if you were just skimming through, when he was at this particular home and he went to go investigate it, this is like this like Santeria, sort of all that sort of stuff. And the Morte and all that. he sees the matches that are on the shrine, and then he also sees the note about being at the library on October 31st. October 31st, obviously, is when a lot of black masses are apparently held. I am not super into black masses, but apparently, logically, it would make sense that if you were going to hold one, then Halloween would be a time to do that sort of stuff. So then he goes into the library and he goes to investigate. And so that is why. So someone was like, why were they in these witches' costumes? And it was like, yeah, it's literally Halloween. I don't know. Oh, yeah, it says, though. So whoever asked me that question, it is Halloween. And that is why. And so he bumps into this, dark priest, or whatever you want to call it, the priest who's going to perform the black mass. And because of their interactions, he could kind of tell something is up. And Tim, this was not in the script. He just added the little like knife with the little sort of, you could tell that there's demonic stuff going on here. So Tim actually added that in there. I did not write that in there. So thank you, Tim. Oh, also, why is this in a library? So the reason why it's in a library is because knowledge itself, or the search for knowledge, the desire to acquire knowledge itself, in many ways, especially knowledge beyond normal human comprehension, that could actually become very dangerous, and knowledge itself can, in many ways, become an idol of sorts. And so some people, well, I won't get too into it, but that is why that it was in a library as well. So anytime all this sort of stuff, usually, I've said before, if something is in the script, I better be able to answer exactly why it is in the script. And all of the dialogue, there should be no wasted dialogue. If you say, like, why did he say this? Why did he say that? Why? There's a reason for it. So in the past, I've had disagreements with certain professional writers who may or may not work at Marvel Comics, where they're like, oh, it was a throwaway line, Doug. Why are you... There are not throwaway lines. You don't have a lot of real estate in a comic book. The idea that you are a writer and you're just talking about quote unquote throwaway lines, that doesn't fly with me. That is a horrible thing to say, actually. To say that you just have throwaway lines or like space filler. Wrong answer, Private. That's a no-go. All right. Let's see. Matt says, I agree. Having a priest main character leads to a lot of possibilities. Yeah, they have access to so many different people from so many different backgrounds. And having this character be a veteran, he has a network of other veterans at his disposal. And also being a Soulfinder now, by the end of the story, he has a network of other Soulfinders. So that will come into play in the second book, which has to deal with Navy SEALs, submariners, the U.S. Army Night Stalkers, which is like the elite helicopter pilots. I think a lot of them usually they basically go from like a ranger school, and then they get into they become like Night Stalkers. So in special forces, all those guys, it's all the same sort of realm. Let's see, what's the font you used in your comics, Doug? It seems you found the official font from comics. You would have to ask Timothy Lim that. Tim was our letterer. I did not ask him. I just trusted Tim to do his thing. And so he adds in little sound effects a lot of the time. The clack, 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 swipe, swipe. Although we both were talking about this, and we like the use of sound effects a lot more than we did beforehand. And how do I say this? If you used sound effects properly, it really adds to the script, I think. You could obviously abuse them, but I am a big fan of sound effects if done correctly. Now, obviously, Brett R. Smith, I love what he did with his color work in this. And Brett was another one where I just was like, hey, what do you think for this? And then he was giving me all sorts of ideas of where he wanted to go, different movies that he was thinking of, the color palettes and all this kind of stuff. We are basically on the same page. So yeah, very happy with Brett's work as well. We got the Plague Doctor masks. Now, obviously, Plague Doctor masks are used a lot, but again, this goes back into the library, the search for knowledge, science itself becoming a sort of god to people. If science can't explain it, if it's anything outside the realm of science, then I don't care about it. And apparently, science can explain the entire universe. So those sorts of things. So, and I say that with family that is in the medical community. I don't have a thing against science at all. I'm all about science and the scientific method, but I do have a problem when science becomes the end all be all. So Mike says, nice touch too, that the satanic priests are wearing plague masks. Also, are they speaking a form of Sanskrit, Aramaic? That again, that goes to Timothy Lim. That was Timothy Lim was the one who came up with this. So I think in the script, I basically said that they were performing their ritual or whatever. And I didn't tell him exactly what to come up with. And this is what he came up with. So I'll have to ask him that, because when I saw it initially, I was like, oh, that's cool. And then he obviously, with the different colors, with the people that are influenced by the demonic, have the black word balloons. So this was Tim. When we were down in Florida, I met Tim at Disney World and Mark in, what is it, like October of, I'm losing track of time, 2018. And there was some Plague Doctor masks and that I liked, and I took a picture of them, and I think I sent them to Tim. So those are probably like the ones that we saw at, I don't even know, I'm assuming it was like Epcot Center or something along those lines. And so he did that. Tim added the upside down cross that was not in the script. And the one thing that I will say, I don't think Tim would say this, I didn't get into big detail about the women. I wish this woman was a little bit more looked like this particular one. So I guess she's the older librarian or whatever, but I wish they were both kind of more seductive, even though like if this was Stifler's mom, I should have said that in the script, and I did not. So this is like the younger assistant librarian, and she's been around a little while. I think I said something along those lines, but so I wish that they both had similar, she could be bigger, but I wish I should have said that they both needed to be attractive. So let's see. So Charlotte comes in. You saw her at the start, and I won't get into everything, but there was Charlotte's character actually changed. This was actually not Charlotte in the original script. I don't know if Mike remembers that or not. So this was changed. This was just another woman that was into all of this, and it became Charlotte, which I thought was a pretty good idea. And that was Tim's idea as well, to tie all of this together. She was having doubts about and questions about the faith. And then so she was also dabbling with these other guys. And a lot of this stuff, it starts with, just like the Ouija board. And then people get into stuff, and then it starts snowballing. And then all of a sudden, even if some people, they don't take things seriously, and they get into this, but then it becomes serious. It becomes very serious. And so initially, this was just somebody that was attending the mass, and it became Charlotte. So obviously, Father Redder puts a stop to it, and he had texted Chua. Chua comes up, and of course, she is demonically possessed. And we wanted to show that. So this is where like the supernatural elements come in, and these people, even her teeth are a little bit like they become like more pointed. And she's got the climax inside her there. We wanted to show that as these people become demonically possessed, they could actually take on the forms of different animals in some way, shape, or form. And that was something that I was like, okay, well, we could play around with that in the future. And I will actually in the second one, without saying too much. So this page, when I first saw this was pretty cool. Tim is actually fooling around with different perspectives. And he has even said that he pushed himself to his limits in terms of the different perspectives that he was using. And I was really happy that he was, again, giving 110% to this. And I thought this was a really cool page. And obviously, things get out of hand. And then the next day, now this is where we enter into Bishop Beige here. Mike McNulty, as a Catholic, you would know, or you might know, that Bishop Barron often talks about beige Catholicism. So if you're like me and you grew up in the 80s, you may have attended a church that was filled with beige all over the place. You didn't even know it was a Catholic church. It could just be a non-denominational church. And just like the walls were plain, the seats were plastic. You wouldn't even know. You could hold any sort of service in there, basically. And so this has to do with, there's a certain sort of Catholicism that downplays elements of the faith, the traditional faith, for various reasons, which I won't get into. But Bishop Beige represents, and Tim actually, I think Tim, this was not in the script, University of Bovine, a Randolph Herbert Beige. So he represents this strain of Catholicism. And so obviously he's upset. And this is where, how do I say, even within the Catholic Church, there are literally bishops, there are priests that do not believe, they believe that the devil is a metaphor. They do not believe in the supernatural. They do not believe that people could be demonically possessed. They're basically heretics. I don't know why they're in the church, but they're in the church. One could argue that they are trying to destroy the church from within. Again, we won't get too into that. Maybe Mike and I could talk about these things sometimes. Let's see. Gurney says, my Catholic church had a folk band that sung the Our Father. It was terrible. I had that too. I had that too. And it was like it was weird. It wasn't quite as yours, but like, yeah. So yeah, we're on the same page. And so this is where these two different views of the Catholic Church are butting up against one another. But the thing is, he has to be, he has to submit to the orders of Bishop Beige. So I had to be very careful about what I had, because Bishop Beige wants him to fill his duties. Technically, he can't tell him not to do certain things, but he's trying to encourage him not to. So anyone who's a practicing Catholic, you would know that, okay, well, I had to be very careful about how I handled that one. And again, Tim adds all these little details into the background that I quite like. Attention to detail. So he's got his matches. Here we go. This is a Easter egg. Just Some Diner is a Easter egg for people that like Just Some Guy. Obviously, I couldn't put Just Some Guy into the script, but this is a tip of the hat to Just Some Guy, who was very kind, and he actually, Just Some Diner was in there before he did a video even telling people to check out the Indiegogo page. But so in this particular tale, I don't know if I don't think they'll return to this place in the next one, based on where the script is at right now. Maybe at the end, there's a couple scenes I haven't quite worked out yet. But so they go to Just Some Diner. Father Redder has a thing for tater tots. This is kind of, Tim liked the idea. Oh, and actually, if you're into black hops, there's a little Easter egg right here for you guys as well. But we talked about, I've said this before, how food actually says something about a character. And so tater tots, I think of, when kids love tater tots, and well, even adults love tater tots as well. But tater tots to me, there's a certain innocence connected with them. And even though Father Redder is a very serious guy, he is a combat vet, he's seen all this kind of stuff, there's still a bit of innocence to him and a childlike quality. And so that is why he eats tater tots. Okay, so they're talking about the matches, they're talking about everything. And this is actually Blackfire in disguise. And he comes up at this particular time. So Father Redder, he actually allows himself to be seen by Father Redder. He whispers in Chua's ear, like the devil whispering in your ear to strike the match. And then he's like, what did that guy just say to you? And he's like, who? And obviously, again, the devil whispering in your ear, you might not quite know that they're doing that if you don't have discernment. And he strikes the match. Boom, they go into the psychological realm. Both of them are transported there for the first time. Let's see what people are saying here. I saw Weaponized Nerd Rage. Thank you for tuning in, man. I appreciate that, wherever you are. I never understood how people could claim to believe in God, then claim the devil as a metaphor. Indubitably, Weaponized Nerd Rage. And actually, one way people get it also works in another way. So people convince society and culture that the devil does not exist. And when you convince people that the devil does not exist, then ipso facto, many people believe that God does not exist as well. And so what's the saying? That, the greatest trick the devil ever played was convincing the world that he didn't exist. And so, yeah, we could get into all that kind of stuff. Let's see, Lorenzo. It is my understanding that Vatican Council II is supposed to result in the Latin Mass being translated into the local languages, but some parishes used it as an excuse to become too modern. Yeah, I was talking to somebody about that last night, a Catholic reader, and he was asking me my thoughts on Vatican II. I did not get completely into it, but many of the problems with the church today, I believe, can be directly tied to Vatican II. All right, so let's see. Joseph, thanks for tuning in. William Riverdale, thank you for tuning in as well. Hope your comic is doing well. It is doing very well. We sold over 1,000 copies and continue to get new people that are on a regular basis, daily now, asking me for more copies. So much so that I ordered 1,000 extra copies. So I fully anticipate to sell out of at least 2,000 copies. I'm very happy with that. So we are on our way there. We are over 1,000. I would say close to like 1,100, something along that at this point in time. And somebody just emailed me today and reminded me that they would like 5 copies mailed to them. So good with that. I sent 20 copies to 2 different priests that asked for them, and they are giving it to their RCIA program heads for them to read. So yeah, doing very well. I'm very well. Very happy with how Soulfinder is doing. We are set up quite well for the next one. Okay, so they go into the psychological realm, and this is Patrick Redder as a child. Again, spoiler, if you're just tuning in right now. And you know that something is wrong. He has to go to a funeral. He does not want to. He's in a tree fort. If you grew up, at least where I grew up, there was tree forts. We had weeping willows. I need to go drink some water here in a second. There was weeping willows, and the kids would make tree forts in the weeping willows. And a random story, I don't know if I should say this here. One of my youngest memories was a kid climbing to the top of a weeping willow, and there was a tree fort up there, and there was a creek down below, and he stuck his butt over the edge of the fort, and he crapped from like 3 or 4 stories or whatever the heck it was. I was little. I was just say 3 stories off the top of a weeping willow, and it fell into the creek. And it just cracked me up when I was a kid. And to this day, I still remember it. And for whatever reason, it just makes me laugh. So anyway, tree forts. Father Redder as a child, Patrick as a child is there. And Patrick translates into noble, and Redder translates into savior. So his name, if you researched the full name, Noble Savior. So again, people that want to dig into the book on these different levels, they will find things that they did not before. All right, so there's a funeral. He doesn't want to go. He's hiding from his family. And in his mind, this is actually, as he grows older, you can see that almost this moment in time, this sort of understandable for a child, but on another level, a form of it's cowardice. He cannot face it. You can see why perhaps he went into the military. Weird place to join the stream. Yeah, I know. Let's see. I'm hesitant to pin all the church's problems on the council, but there certainly were those Jesuits who used Vatican II as a bludgeon against tradition. And yep. So yeah, I would not pin all of the problems on the church for sure, but a lot of problems. We'll just put it that way. So okay, so he's back in this moment in time. The demons use this. The demons have your complete memory at their disposal. If you have seen something, you have experienced something, and that actually gets into real life. I won't get too much into it, but what you expose yourself to, what you put in your mind, once it's in there, you start watching all sorts of bizarre things on the internet. Boom. They could use what's in your mind, what you have put into your mind, to then find that weakness in your spiritual armor. And so he crawls into the fetal position. He's crying, thinking about that. Boom. It's like a dreamscape. Now he's back onto the battlefield of Iraq. Something has happened, an IED blast. You can see that his comrade here, his driver, has been injured. He turns him over. When I first saw this, Tim actually said, I believe there were initially maggots that were coming out of his eyes, and that was like a little too much for him. And but so this is another thing where the character is like, am I dead? Where am I? Did you kill us both? He doesn't want to face this. This is his own sort of struggling with his time in war. And the character says that he will see you in hell. Now, initially, I have to double check this, but I don't believe this was not in the script. I think Tim here and there added little things. I just had him saying, just dissolving into a mist. And so I may have, now that I think about it, I may have asked him to cut this on second thought, because I would have rather, because I won't get into it all here. It's fine, but I liked the idea of him just not being sure what is going on. Is this his friend? Is this not his friend? What's going on? And he just dissolved. It's a hellish experience, but yeah. So, but obviously, for the most part, there were little parts where Tim tweaked the dialogue and added things, particularly, I'll come up to it in the near future here, with the history of the Soulfinders that were awesome, and I really like that. So they get out of it, boom, boom, boom. Redder needs to look things over. That's when he goes back to St. Michael's. We have the introduction of Father Reginald Crane, the Vietnam veteran who I want to explore more. I want to actually do a prequel where I do the origin of Father Reginald Crane and how he became a Soulfinder. Again, these little details, the Divine Mercy Chaplet image that Tim puts in the back here, this is actually on my wall. I tweeted an image of it earlier today. Tim put that in there. That was not in the script. I don't think it was in the script. It may have been. I think he just added that. I don't know. We introduce him, and that's where we got the St. Michael image as well. Tim puts that in there. All sorts of good little stuff. And this is where Tim and Mark Pellegrini were the one that were talking. They came up with a lot of this history. The order of Soulfinders was commissioned by Pope Boniface II, our primary mission, blah, blah, blah. All right, so this is where Tim and Mark Pellegrini came in right here with a lot of this sort of stuff. After they saw the first draft, they basically came up with, they do these things called character Bibles, and they came up with one for the Soulfinders and said, what do you think about this? And where I liked it and where I didn't. And then so it was all sort of cobbled, I don't want to say cobbled together, but woven into the script, things that I liked. And so this is where Tim was really, really strong on a lot of the historical stuff and some of the world building. And I wanted him to do that because I wanted him to be invested in this book. And so even though he's the artist, I wanted to let him know that I respected him enough. The obsidian matches, I didn't initially just call them obsidian, but they got with that. And then they got actually with the smell of, what was I going to say? There's another part, sulfur, the sulfur smell that comes up. Tim was another one who came up with that idea to let people know that these matches had been struck. And so, like I said, I wanted Tim to be like, wow, Doug respects me and he wants to incorporate me as much as possible into the creative process. Okay, so now we have Mass, and this actually, the gospel, I work this into the script after going to Mass on on Sunday. I was like, oh, this would actually be good for the script. So Jesus summoned the 12 and began to send them out 2 by 2 and gave them authority over unclean spirits. Then Blackfire, as Father Patrick Redder's father, posing as him, he comes into the church. He could only go so far. Tim, this is another one, the internal physics of the book, where he was like, I don't think he should be able. So in the script, I was like, well, he would look like he's in agony, just being there. Coming into the church, he would be trying to hold himself together. And he's like, well, he could only go so far. And then there's like an invisible barrier where he cannot cross that. And I was like, okay, that works. So I thought it would be very interesting if you had this priest and he was trying to, deliver Mass, and all of a sudden his dead father appears before him, and he needs to keep his composure, his military manner, while looking at this demon that is posing as his father. He doesn't know what is going on. And then obviously you can see the connection to the Terminator 2 as well. And so that was also in many ways on purpose. So Blackfire, demons, and also a little bit of a nod to Terminator 2 as well. But Father Redder's father was a good cop. So obviously not all motorcycle cops are bad cops, but I wanted Blackfire to also give across this T2 vibe as well. So anybody who's my age who grew up, they watched that movie, they would probably kind of, maybe even subconsciously, think of Terminator 2. All right, this was the panel. I've talked about this before. This is Tim's friend who just so happened to look a lot like Dan Slott. And we had a funny exchange where I was like, do not put Dan Slott in this book. Please do not put Dan Slott in this book, especially Dan Slott with a bot fly coming out of his forehead. And so Tim tweaked it. This really is his friend. And this part right here, so you're like, well, why are there bot flies coming out of foreheads? And so this is kind of symbolic of we all have demonic, sinful seeds or larvae or whatever you want to call it inside us. And whether we want to admit it or not, this sort of evil is embedded within us, or we have the capability of doing bad things, evil things, sinful things. And so all of these people, they're just paying attention to the Mass. And what Father Redder could see is that they all have these bot flies, these little demonic bot flies inside them. So, alrighty, there you go. Keep in mind the bishop was the authority to allow Latin Mass, and there are opportunities. Yep. Actually, the cathedral that I go to on occasion, there is it's not completely Latin, but there is Latin mixed in there. And I've been to Mass where there was Spanish, Latin, and English in the same Mass, which growing up, I definitely never had Spanish, didn't have Latin, and I didn't have all three simultaneously in one Mass before. So then Father Redder goes home. And this is what I wanted to explore. So you see the remnants of the old treehouse. This is obviously still on his mind. And his mother has ovarian cancer, this slow cancer that sort of eats away at you over time. He's got a sister that does not particularly have any faith, a real way. She's kind of a little bit hippie-ish, little new agey. She's got the little peace thing on here. So they don't see eye to eye. And I wanted in this particular scene to show that Father Redder has his responsibilities to his congregation, but he also has responsibilities to his family. And what happens when your responsibilities at work, say you're a cop, say you're a soldier, say you're a priest, an EMT, whatever you are, conflicts with your responsibilities as a son, as a brother, whatever. And so he is oftentimes, because of his work, not there in his sister's mind for his sick mother. So if you ever had sick parents or anything along those lines, then you know how that goes, especially when people live across country and this and that. Oh, Shadow King is back here libeling me again. Well, the one good thing about you streaming is that I know you're not using that time to plot against CG creators. Shadow King, would you like to come on the stream right now? It's 9:15 p.m. Pacific. Would you like to expose me before all the world? Would you like to share your evidence of the conspiracy? Yes or no? Would you like to come on? Would you like me to send you a link? If you have evidence of a conspiracy, let me know. I will invite you on right now. It's 9:15. You have 1 minute to answer. Tomorrow at 7 p.m. No, you have right now to come on. You don't get to dictate on my channel. Do you want to expose me before all the world right now and the conspiracy? Yes or no? No? You're not answering. All right. You had your opportunity and you didn't take it. So I am going to the Philippines. I don't have time to deal with you. But I will note that you did not come on right now when I offered it to you. Very telling. All right. So going back, Shadow Slave, perfectly fine with libeling me over and over again, going around the internet with a conspiracy that makes absolutely, positively no sense, no evidence whatsoever. Embarrassing. All right. Comic Book Hut is here. Thank you. Thomas is here. Thank you for tuning in. Lorenzo. Yeah, no. Shadow Slave is the shadow coward. Ironic that somebody accuses me of being into a conspiracy, lives in the shadow. Very interesting. And Shadow Slave doesn't want to come on. You have the opportunity, and you didn't want to come. I want you to expose me before all the world. Oh, but you need 24 hours to get your thoughts together. All this kind of stuff. Very, very interesting. I happen to know that phone recordings are legal in New Jersey. That's all I will say. I don't really care. Yeah, I know. Yep. Fine with me. I really don't care. Okay. So release the phone recordings, whatever was recorded. I really don't care. I really honestly don't care. Waste of time. Get back to the comic. Yeah, no evidence whatsoever. Phone recordings are so what Shadow King is saying here is that I talked to Ethan Van Sciver on the phone, and Ethan Van Sciver recorded a phone conversation with me. Is that what you're saying, Shadow King? That's apparently what you're saying. Yeah, I think that's what you're saying, because the only person I talked to in New Jersey in the past was Ethan Van Sciver. And if he recorded my phone conversation and wants to release the entire phone conversation, then I am perfectly fine with that. That would say quite a bit about Ethan Van Sciver now, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it, Shadow King? But again, I don't care, because there is no conspiracy. All right. All right, so back to the book. Shadow King had his opportunity right now, right here, and he did not take it. Very, very telling. And Shadow King, if nothing else, just implicated Ethan Van Sciver as recording surreptitiously a phone conversation between us, which, again, I don't care if that is actually well, Shadow King, no, I'm in New Jersey. Well, I've never talked to you, Shadow King, unless your name is Ethan Van Sciver. The only person I talked to on the phone from New Jersey was Ethan Van Sciver in the past. So yeah. So unless your name is Ethan Van Sciver, then I don't know. All right, here. Let's see. So Shadow King, again, had his opportunity to come on, expose me before the world, expose his New Jersey phone recordings or whatever the heck, and he didn't do it because there is no conspiracy. I think Shadow King is a female. Yeah, there has been sock puppet females, I suspect, of trying to harm me in the past and contact my employers. So that might be an issue as well. People could look into that if they want to know about that as well. So, but for the record, how do I say this? If I ever released my direct messages and my text messages and my voice recordings and all sorts of stuff, again, people would not want me to do that, because I would look really good and they would look really bad. All right, so Shadow King had his time, and his time, and he can go on, or she can go on, libeling me across the internet, and it is libel, and arguably even cyber stalking to some extent. So Shadow King, we'll just say that you're playing a very interesting game with somebody who, if you want to play stupid games, you're going to win stupid prizes. All right. So back to the book at hand. Shadow Coward did not take the opportunity to expose me before all the world. Embarrassing. All right. So after Father Redder has his argument or whatever with his sister. Oh, here's another Easter egg. So anybody that watched Cobra in the 80s, this is not the exact car, because obviously I don't know what legal things are going on with that. Oh, Shadow King is back. No, yeah, you will, stupid. Shadow King, answer me this question. Why did Mitch Breitweiser say that he wanted to be drama-free and literally say on his streams, which are deleted, that he did not believe that anyone was seriously trying to hurt him? Mitch Breitweiser deleted all of his streams in which he talked about a conspiracy. So if Mitch Breitweiser has a problem with me, if he was lying when he said he wanted to be drama-free, then that's one thing. But so yes, please, you should be encouraging Mitch Breitweiser to, if he has a problem with me. Mitch has been silent, so That is very interesting that all of Mitch's conspiracy streams were deleted. That is very interesting to me, and you have yet to answer why. Here's one more thing. There is nothing I could do to Mitch Breitweiser that would hurt Mitch Breitweiser more than him not getting his book out. I backed Red Rooster. I critiqued Red Rooster and gave him hours of my free time. The thing that hurt Mitch the most is not getting Red Rooster out. So, and yes, the comic book has also said that Mitch should get his book out. Indubitably. So if you want to use me as a scapegoat because your favorite creator has not released his book and I am a backer of it, then yeah, it's kind of interesting that you think that I could do more to hurt Mitch than Mitch not getting his product into the hands of angry customers. So, yes, again, if Shadow Slave wants to win, if he wants to play stupid games, then he will win stupid prizes. But again, like I said, he was offered a chance to be on face-to-face with me right now and expose me before the world, and he didn't do it. So, interesting. Anyway, back to the issue at hand. If you watched Cobra, this is very much like the car that was in the movie. So I told Tim, come up with something that is reminiscent of the vehicle in Cobra, and then we will have Father Reginald Crane actually drive that car. And it would actually work well. This is actually his father's refurbished car. So, computer robots. Doug Ernst, to be honest, there'll always be other people that will be jealous of your success if they are unsuccessful. That guy says, I always wanted the Cobra car still to this day. Yeah, so there you go. If you're into Cobra, a car inspired by Cobra, we'll say that for legal reasons, I wanted to protect myself, is actually in Soulfinder. So obviously, Father Redder then talks about his experience with Father Reginald Crane. He lets people know, you know, Father Redder is getting in over his head here, but Father Redder is not sure that he wants to be a Soulfinder, and you can see slowly but surely he's going to have to come to a decision here. Miracle Mark, what's up? What's up? By the way, Doug, I got Soulfinder. I think you'll be the subject of my first comic review. I have some suggestions for you. I wish I had caught the stream from the start. Thanks, Tom. I really appreciate it, and I'm always open to your suggestions. All right, and all right, so now we get into this. All right, it's about 9:30. I don't know if we'll go through the entire book tonight. Maybe we'll cut it off pretty soon. This has been a lot of writer commentary, but it's later at night. Father Redder is contemplating. You can see all of his scars here. And actually, did we forget a little bit of a scar? And I guess we'll say that the shadow is covering it. But there's a little bit. So his peekaboo scar there. It's maybe in a future edition, I'll make sure. But for now, we'll just say the shadow is covering it. All right. So now you can see that he has saved the newspaper clippings over the years. His father was killed at a routine traffic stop. He is reminiscing back to those days. And you can see when I was a little kid, I used to play with the G.I. Joes, and we used to have shoes. I had a big family. I had 7 people in my family. And I would play with the G.I. Joes, and they would like hide in the shoes, or like the shoes would become, I don't know, like vehicles or like little like forts or bunkers and things. And so I always like the idea of having Father Redder play with his G.I. Joes in his dad's work boots, before he goes out on patrol or whatever. And so he's thinking about this. He gets a knock at the door, and he sees this cop, this mysterious cop, opens the door. Brett R. Smith did a really good job with this right here. And the lighting here I just thought was really cool, really creepy. Tim did this fisheye point of view that I thought was really, really cool. And so then this particular cop, which is like a demonic sort of creature, or I should just say a demon, leaves the matches behind, and he texts and he says, like, like, did you leave these behind? Did you want me to have this? And then Chua's like, what are you talking about, dude? He sees the newspaper clippings fall again, and Father Redder gives okay, good. We got his scar there. He gives in to temptation and strikes the match after thinking about his father. So this is something that I also wanted to broach, is the idea that even though he's a hero, he's a fallible man just like all of us. And it doesn't matter whether you're a priest or a cop or a soldier, we're all tempted in different ways. And so it's possible if you had a father that you missed and you wanted to see him again, and you had already been in this demonic realm and it was messing with your mind, and you had seen this figure, or you had been back to your father's death, or like before the funeral, you saw this demon come to you in church, and you're just whatever. It's messing with your mind. He strikes the match. He gives in the temptation, and then he is back again. And this was a part that I thought it actually kind of got me a little bit emotional, even just writing it. And so he's there, and he sees his dad, or what he thinks is his father, and his dad is like, hey, like, I'm going, and he's like, I'll be back. And he has this hold the line, he's got to hold the line against, the bad people out there. And Father Redder is reminiscing on this, and he's like, I know that's not true. I know, because this is the day that his father dies. And this was his last goodbye. And as a child, he didn't know. His dad was just like, yeah, I'll see you later, buddy. And this gets into the idea that tomorrow is never promised. You can die tomorrow. You could be in a car accident. I could be flying to the Philippines this week. My plane could go down. You never know when your time is going to be up. So you got to make the most of it while you're here. And maybe you write books that try to influence people in a positive way. Maybe you create accounts called Shadow King and you libel people across the internet. Maybe you are a reader and you offer productive comments to streams like this. Or maybe you just troll people like Shadow King here. And but the fact of the matter is one day we will all die. We will all meet our maker, and we will have to answer for the way that we behaved. Did we lie about people? Did we spread falsehoods about people? Did we live to cause chaos and problems? Or did we actually try and make the world a better place? These are all the things we have to ask ourselves. We have to look ourselves in the mirror every day. And so anyway, he says, he's sad. He's like, I know this is not true. Turns around, the demon is right there. And he sees, obviously, he comes from a Catholic family. His father does not, his quote unquote father doesn't have the cross. He notices it. And as soon as he notices it, the demon doesn't want him to focus on that. And then boom, it's like another dreamscape. And then we go right to his father's death. So now he is actually there at his father's death at the roadside, the traffic stop, and experiencing that. And so his father dies, and here we go. Adam Friended is here. I've already met my maker. Adam, interesting. Interesting. Thank you for showing up, Adam. I appreciate it. Let's see. And he says, nobody can hear you. Nobody is coming. Again, these demons do not want him to actually... They're trying to weaken his faith. They're trying to find, again, that spiritual weak point in the armor. And then he begins to say that our Father. Also, Father Crane is above him, and he is praying as well. And boom, he's out of it. Notice that he comes out of it, in addition to Father Crane doing his thing, but he is able to escape this dreamscape by turning to God. So he does that. And let's see. And then Father Reginald Crane is there. And he says, you still have a lot to learn. Things you won't find in a textbook. And so this gets back to earlier in the book where I was talking about knowledge, science becoming about like a false idol. Not everything that is important in life, not everything that it could, the why we are here, those sorts of questions, you can't always, science does not explain everything, particularly why we are here. And so some things, again, cannot be found in a textbook. Some things you have to experience. And especially when it comes to the supernatural. So, all right, this scene in particular, I really liked. Actually, I got emotional when I saw this scene. I've said this before on Tim's stream, is when I saw these panels right here, Father Redder coming out of it and reaching out his hand for help. This is another one where I wanted his peekaboo scar to show. This was like Tim reached into my own mind and pulled it, just put it onto the page. Now, Tim has said, sweet cast, thanks for tuning in. It's interesting. There's a lot of people here that know who I am as a person, and people that I've talked to about the conspiracy, so-called conspiracy, that Shadow King has been talking about. If any of you want to weigh in on my character, feel free. Because it's kind of irritating when people continue to spread lies about me and libel. But Sweetcast, you have always been a nice guy to me. I appreciate that. Anyway, Tim said that he just read the script, and he's like, well, I didn't need to reach into your mind. You're the one who wrote the script, and I just put it on there. But when I saw this was like, boom. This is like, he reached into my mind's eye. And then, so this particular scene right here, when they're looking out at night, Father Redder is leaning on Officer Chua, and the three of these guys are together, and they're looking. So you see that these guys are a team now, and this is what I'm building for the future. And you can see that he has to lean on Officer Chua, and obviously Crane he's the mentor. Let's see, Redder is the soul finder and Doug is the troll finder. So we won't get into all this. It's 9:35. Maybe I'll come back to this. So I don't even know what page are we on here. We're on 34. I guess instead of going through all of this, I will fast forward a little bit, but we'll go from this page right here, the three of these guys together. Adam says, everyone talk Shiza, Doug. Don't let it get you down. I'm trying to win Grifter of the Year 2020. People do talk Shiza, but there's a difference between just saying I don't like somebody and literally creating manufactured conspiracies that are not true and hurting people's reputation in ways that are just, in my mind, pretty disgusting and gross. So yeah, Shadow King says, I am sorry for any of the rumors I have spread. I now realize that I am wrong, and I am sorry. If that is true, I will take you at your word. Let's see. I walked into something weird, I guess. Doug has always been a good dude to me. Thank you, Sweetcast. I appreciate that. Thank you, Clint. Let's see here. All righty. All right, so there was I won't get into all this. There's so much I would like to cover, but it's already getting close to 10 o'clock at night. Another page that I particularly like. Will you re-release this? There are actually, I ordered Shadow King 1,000 extra copies due to the feedback. And if you email me at douglasernst@douglasernst.blog, I will send you a copy. In fact, Shadow King, just for you, I will send you a free copy. I will sign the copy if you want. You don't need to pay. I will send you a free copy. You don't need to pay for a thing. Email me at douglasernst@douglasernst.blog, and say, hey, this is Shadow King, and I would like you to mail me a copy at the following address, and I will mail it to you free of charge. So let's see. Adam says your reputation is fine with me, and I've actually met my creator. All right. So there you go, Shadow King. If you want a free book, I will mail you a free book after I get back from the Philippines. All right. So back to the end here. I guess I could talk about this on another page, but the three of them come together again at the end, and I guess I'll concentrate on this here. So, damn, a free copy. I think I might need to start spreading some rumors and conspiracies. Yeah, I know. But I want to pay you for it. Well, I'll tell you what. If you give me your address, Shadow King, I will mail it to you, and then I will send you my PayPal account. You don't need to pay me. If you want to pay me, you could pay me whatever you want. So, all right. So Father Redder says, true faith reveals itself when everything else has been stripped away. And that is actually a nod to, I believe, C.S. Lewis was the first person that I read that actually, that I saw that say something along those lines. So that is a nod to C.S. Lewis right there. And then Officer Chua says, easier said than done. I feel that none of us are safe. And so that's the thing is like, you can say like, okay, well, you know, once everything else has been stripped away, you have cancer, you have ovarian cancer, you've lost your leg in war, you have mental illnesses or whatever. Like, it's easy to say that. Like, Chua is basically saying like, dude, I'm the one who practically has to live with this sort of stuff. And then, so then Father Redder comes back and says, then we better stick together again, setting the stage for the next one. He says, see you around, gentlemen. May God be with you. And then, of course, Tim adds in, be sober and watch, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, goeth about seeking whom he may devour. And so that was a little bit from Tim there. But what was I going to say? I guess, there was also a quote from Thomas Merton in here. He's the Trappist monk. Thomas Merton actually, in many ways, I don't want to say changed my life, but had a major impact on my life. The 7-Story Mountain, he says, and I don't even believe that this quote is from the 7-Story Mountain. I'm not 100% sure on that. Says it takes a heroic humility to be nobody but the man God intended you to be. I believe this is who you are meant to be. Soulfinder 79. So Father Patrick Redder is Soulfinder 79. And so we got the C.S. Lewis nod right there. Got the Thomas Merton nod. And so my hope was with this was that people would see, again, if you are religious and you want to look into the stuff, then you'll be like, oh, okay, cool. If you're not, it doesn't beat you over the head with it. It's not flogging somebody. And so that's that. Let's see, it's 9:41. I guess we could go to some of the art here. So Tim did not like the little newsy cap there. So this was early on. And Tim says, the hardest character appearance to nail down was Father Patrick Redder. Doug gave me free rein to define his appearance so long as he was a younger priest and was depicted as handsome. I played around with a couple of concepts, including giving him a hat and or facial hair, but ultimately we went with an 80s aesthetic. So let's see, Eastwood Squirm. I was going to say, so I did mention to Tim that I liked, was it Clint Eastwood's son? And I was like something along the lines in terms of the handsomeness of Clint Eastwood's son would be nice. Obviously, you don't want him to look exactly like Clint East. Why can't I think of his name right now? But anyway, the younger Eastwood. And then we also came up with the idea. I forgot the older actor's name in Rogue One. I can't think of his name right now, but he was the scientist that actually came up with the, was it Maz something? I don't know if I'm getting that right. But the guy who came up with the plans for the Death Star. And so like it was an amalgamation between the two of them, but ultimately I allowed Tim just to kind of do his thing as an artist. And then he came up with this sort of back to the futurist. He wanted the like tousled Michael J. Fox hair sort of look, and I thought that was kind of cool. And then when with the Soulfinder uniform, I was either texting Tim or I was calling him. Sweet Cat says, I'm not Catholic. Scott Eastwood. There you go. And Mads Mickelson. Is that, yeah. So those are the two that were thrown off the top of my head when I was talking to Tim. And although I think Tim was the one who first mentioned Mads to me, I believe. Clint says, I'm not Catholic and I enjoyed the story quite a bit. Thanks, Clint. I appreciate that very much. And thank you for sending me Downcast. I am looking forward to getting the next Downcast as well. So I will definitely be backing that in the future. So looking forward to seeing what you're doing with that, Clint. So thank you for backing, and thank you for the kind words. Weaponized Nerd Rage, thank you also for tuning in. I appreciate it. And QWERTY. So with Tim, I forgot if I was talking on the phone, if it was a text message, but I said that I wanted something inspired by the Marines, their dress uniform. And then he's like, oh, like this? And Tim was actually on a Korean website, some sort of clothing website, and there was something very, very, it was like serendipity sort of thing, very close to this. I'm like, actually, yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. So I guess it's a combination of me telling Tim that I wanted a Marines inspired clerical uniform, and then I guess he says Chinese military uniforms. Maybe that was on the, he said, I think he said something like, I'm on a South Korean clothing website or something like that. And so it was a combination of the two. And then Tim was the one, I believe, that also said, like, maybe we could put like gold, the cufflinks or whatever to show rank or something along those lines. And he was the one that came up with the more definitive. Well, Reginald Crane is interesting because the name Crane, to me, I wanted him to be a taller guy, like a crane. So cranes are very, like, obviously tall, but I wanted him to be sturdy and strong as well. But then also there's the bird, the crane, and the crane, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is kind of associated with wisdom and things along those lines. So it was like I got like a double, I don't want to say double whammy, but I got like double the bang for my buck in terms of the last name Crane, is that I wanted him tall, or maybe triple. I wanted him tall, I wanted him strong, and I wanted a name that indicated a kind of wisdom and intelligence and those sorts of things as a mentor. And then we go to Officer Chua. Let's see. Adam says, I was at the CG secret meeting and we were all talking about how we could be more anti-Christian. Oh, okay. So there's some sort of debate there. Anyway, okay. Chua as looking like a young Manny Pacquiao. So obviously it's not exactly like Manny Pacquiao for legal reasons, but I wanted a resemblance to Manny Pacquiao. And okay, so I didn't give an exact height on Father Crane. I will rectify that for the next one. But he is supposed to be tall. The villain in the next one is actually taller than Father Reginald Crane. Anyway, so Manny Pacquiao. So the Philippines, there's a lot of Catholics in the Philippines. So that was actually another. So Manny Pacquiao is like a hero and obviously a strong guy. And when you think of Manny, and if you're into boxing and fighting, he's just an iconic figure. So I wanted something that harkened to an iconic figure, but also Filipinos there's many, many Christians who are Filipinos and many, many Catholics who are Filipino as well. And so that helps in terms of the audience. And maybe when I go over to the Philippines, then maybe I'll bring in a couple extra copies as well. And then here is the early Dave Dorman sketches. I said this on another stream. I told Dave via Tim, I was nervous. I said I did not want Father Redder to have a Bill Clinton-esque nose, a more bulbous nose. And Tim was like, no, you want a German nose. And I was like, yes, yes. So then Dave, he turned it into a more German nose, and boom, we got it. Now, initially, in terms of the Christian imagery, I was like, you know what, this makes sense, but I think with why do bad things happen to good people, it might actually be better. And I don't know if this was a combination of a conversation with Tim, but the nails of the cross. Even though somebody was like, well, I didn't see nails in the story, but metaphorically or symbolically on the cover, the nails indicate pain and suffering. And so the question, why do bad things happen to good people, is much more in line with the nails of the cross. And so that's why on the cover that you eventually got, so here's Crane, he's got the rosary. That's why you ended up seeing the cross. Matthew Weldon, I was introduced to Matt by Tim, and Matt is actually doing the next Soulfinder. He will be our artist on the next one. So if you like Matt's art, and Matt actually did the cover for Downcast as well. And so if you like Matt Weldon's art, he did bonus stuff for Soulfinder. Matt didn't even read the script, I don't think. We gave him like a couple little notes or maybe like an image. And this is what he came up with. He was like, boom. And let's see. Yeah. So, Doug is trying to read the chat and talk. I'm like the guy with the one-man band and all, going all over the place. It's very hard to monitor both at the same time. So if I missed a question, then I apologize. Let's see. Matt also did this one of Father Reginald Crane. Now, some people were like, he looks too young. And I was like, I don't care. This is just his take on the character. And Matt actually has like anime influences to me and manga that creep into his drawings from time to time. And so that's just what my wife and I were thinking. And then we actually had I think Tim mentioned this on the stream. Initially, we were like, Tim was like, I don't know. He's like, what you're noticing like anime? Like, I don't know about that, Doug. And then he asked Matt, and Matt was like, yeah, no, definitely. So my wife definitely is into anime and manga. Someone emailed me that today. And so Matt came up with this one. This was interesting with this giant python coming up from between his legs. Anyway, I should say the king cobra, but the detail that he puts into this is amazing. Now for the next one, Father, I'll just tell Matt, like, hey, just make him a little bit older. He does look pretty young. He needs to look older than Father Redder for sure. And then obviously this is the Double Dragon inspired image. So if you grew up playing the old school NES, the original Nintendo Entertainment System, and you have the instruction booklet for Double Dragon, there's basically an image that has this sort of look to the cityscape in the background. And so I was like, yeah, like something Double Dragon-y with Father Crane and Father Redder like back to back or whatever. And then Matt came up with these giant they're in the story obviously as well, and then he put the two demons behind him. If you read the story, obviously I did not translate the Greek, but there are multiple demons, and the one that says deliver the death blow, in Greek, that demon, there's like basically Blackfire and then Blackfire's minions that also, so if somebody is possessed, multiple demons could be inside somebody at one time. It's like the whole quote unquote we are legion sort of thing. And so when priests exorcise a demon, oftentimes there's multiple demons that are inside this person for various reasons or whatever. So there's the climax that are the sort of disgusting slugs, which represents that demonic possession takes time over the course of, it's a very slow process. People think that you just snap your fingers and then somebody is possessed. That does not happen. That is not. Read Malachi Martin's. Do I have Malachi Martin's book right here? I always put it back and then I lose it, and it's somewhere around here. Why does this always happen to me? I just had it the other day. But anyway, read Hostage to the Devil. It's a great book, and I do not know why I don't have it right here. But Malachi Martin, Hostage to the Devil, and it is a fascinating book. Even if you are an atheist, if you are agnostic, please read it just from the psychological point of view. I love it. But that is what the climax represents. The demon that says deliver the death blow, the translation in Greek is devil's mercenary. And my landlord, the house that I'm in right now, it's a brand new house, and we are renting it out because we moved here rather quickly, and we didn't want to just buy a house right away. But I digress. He is from Greece, and I was like, hey, can you check and make sure that this is a proper translation? And so he did all the Greek translations and made sure that it was good to go. I gave him a free copy when he came to collect his check the other day. So Devil's Mercenary is the other one. Now, Devil's Mercenary, I could get into this another time, but how do I say this? Devil's Mercenary, I was thinking of a villain that I would want for Peter Parker, Spider-Man. And I wanted to have a villain that would force Peter Parker, who does not want to kill. Peter Parker wants to use the minimum amount of force necessary to subdue the villain. He does not want to kill anybody unless you're Kevin Smith and you're writing him, and then he just breaks people's nose for no apparent reason. But we won't get into Kevin Smith. But I wanted to have a villain where basically the only way you can defeat that villain would be like he essentially you would have to deliver a death blow to that villain. And so this particular demon and the way that it wants you to get rid of the demon is obviously not to exorcise the demon. When it confronts the cops early on in the young man's body, he wants to basically commit suicide by cop. He wants the cops to kill him. So then the demon would then leave his body and then move on to the next person. So there's Devil's Mercenary, the climax, which is basically the two that took over the elderly couple. And if you go back, you can see that these demons, the elderly couple, you could see that this was a World War II veteran that had seen the concentration camps in Germany, that had been exposed to evil. And when people are exposed to evil, sometimes everyone reacts to things differently. So you could either respond like Patrick Redder, or sometimes you could basically go into a downward spiral. Life is hopeless. There is no point in anything. Why does God allow this to happen? Why do people, why do concentration camps exist? These sorts of questions. And so that's where that old couple came in. The veteran at the start who dies in the spontaneous human combustion, that was obviously a veteran as well. Unlike Patrick Redder, who kept his faith, this other veteran obviously went into the sort of Santa Muerte and Santeria and all that kind of stuff, got into all of that, and there you go with that. And then I guess we could talk about this another time. There's Patrick Redder's mother, who is dying of ovarian cancer. Plus, her husband died in a at the traffic stop. And so the demon, I guess we're just covering this all now. The demon, before I go to the Philippines, we'll just go into all this here. The demon, spoiler. This is the moment in time after Father Redder's dad died. This is where the negative thoughts, the demonic thoughts, the doubt about her faith came in. Why did God allow my husband to be killed? But in this seemingly random act of violence, is it? We could always get into that later, but so when bad things happen to your family members, then this is where they've seen their entrance. Again, the spiritual weak point. They're like cockroaches. They're looking for any entrance to get in and to cast doubt into your mind. And so the demon Blackfire takes Redder to the point in time where doubt crept into his mother's mind about her own faith. Doug, are you going to Manila? I will be in Manila very, very briefly, and then I am going to an island. I'm going to multiple islands. So I will be, I'll be in Manila very briefly, and then I'm flying to Iloilo. And from Iloilo, I'm going to another island for a day. I got to take a boat, and then we're going back to Iloilo, and we'll be there. So, and then I'm meeting West from Thinking Critical. So, again, spoiler. Blackfire, again, spoiler, notes to Father Redder. All of this was essentially orchestrated to take him off the spiritual chessboard. They can see that Father Redder was a threat to them. And even earlier in the book, Father Redder, it's noted that in his early days as an exorcist here, this child was supposed to be a very big figure. And Father Redder basically, again, presented the child with the living truth, God, and the child rejected the demons. And so they can see that Father Redder was a giant threat to them. And they want to take him off the spiritual chessboard. And if they could do that, if you could get an exorcist off the chessboard, then you are basically going to ensure a lot of souls for Satan. And so that was the point of all this. All of this was orchestrated to try and weaken him. But the greater the challenge, so that actually gets into another thing. People are like, well, why would God allow me to go through all these obstacles? Why would God allow me to go through this gauntlet? All these bad people, all these evil people that are, causing problems for me. It's actually a blessing. If people make your life miserable, a quote unquote living hell, you have to see it as a blessing because it allows you to practice virtues like patience, grace, charity, all that sort of stuff. You are able to then grow. The bigger, the deeper. This gets into the second one a little bit. So the deeper the well, it's like when waves are forming, that the ocean pulls back and there's like this well, and then there's a giant wave or whatever. And so the wave of grace or whatever you want to call it, or virtue that will come from that well that you are sucked into, that is actually a good thing. Comics Artist Pro Secrets, nice, Doug. Ernst stream while I draw. Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it, Ethan. So that actually ties into it as well. So again, they wanted to take him off the board, and they failed. He is now a Soulfinder. Comics Artist Secrets, tell him I am me and you are you. I don't care who you are, Shadow King. Like I said, if you want a free copy of Soulfinder, shoot me an email at douglasstearns@douglasstearns.blog. Tell me I am Shadow King, and I want a free copy of Soulfinder, and it is yours. And I know you said you want to pay earlier. If so, that's great. If not, no problem. So it's yours. If I start getting 10,000 people saying I am Shadow King, send me a free book, then I'll have to work something out. So I will take the first person who says I am Shadow King. Please send me a free copy of Soulfinder. It is yours. All right. Okay. So, and this was the reveal as well. I don't think people saw. Well, you may have sort of seen it earlier. You saw that he was in the IED blast. He was all on fire, but it is not really revealed until this point in time that he has a prosthetic leg. below the knee there. And this is how hot it was in the room. Now, if you're asking, okay, well, how did he survive that? The thing is, the demonic elements can, they could only do what God allows them. So they can act on elements, but God is not going to allow you to take out Father Redder. So it's so hot. So God is actually protecting Father Redder, is limiting the demon in what it can do, but it is allowing the demon to make it so uncomfortable and hot and gross that it literally melts the metal in his prosthesis. And earlier, so here we go. This goes back to like earlier. You can see that the other cop in the room, he's looking into the room. He does not see the demon here. He only sees the woman who is possessed speaking. So if you're just sort of like quickly going over this, you might not have noticed it, but to most people, they only see this woman who is saying, he took your father, he'll take your mother, he destroyed your friends and demolished your body. Obviously, he says lies, Father Redder. He allows you to suffer because he hates you. This guy's like totally confused. But this is what Father Redder is seeing. And Officer Chua at this time, they struck the matches. And so they are able in many ways now, Chua, because he's in this team of men, the demons are allowing him to see what is going on. And so this is how hot it is in the room again. And Tim did this little thing here where you can see what's going on. He was trying to figure out a way to be efficient with the space that he had. We were trying to get it to 56 pages. I had to cut a little bit. We wanted to keep it to 56 or 64 pages. And yeah. So Shadow King this week, if you're a fan, please be polite and behave yourself. Thanks. Thanks, Ethan. I appreciate that. I am a fan and I will behave myself. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. All right. So let me see. Going back. I heard from a couple of people that actually like this scene as well. So, I guess I'll go back. So he was injured on his hand during the exorcism. Where is it? Okay. So initially in this particular scene, we wanted to try and avoid things that would basically be derivative of most sort of exorcism movies and comic books and all this sort of stuff. And I actually had Charlotte here. She threw up. And Tim was like, well, I don't know about that. Why doesn't she just bite him instead? And so I said, well, the reason why she throws up is because Redder throws the holy water in the demon, and that is like basically like the holy sort of, I don't want to say venom or whatever, but snakes have their venom and they want to spit back their venom. And so initially the snake coiled around her stomach so tightly that she then essentially like spit out the demon's venom at him. So he's like, oh, that makes sense. But then when Tim made this change, again, I gave him, I don't want to say total free reign, but he had a lot of leeway to do what he wanted. I was like, it makes sense because obviously snakes can bite you as well. And so she bit him. And in addition to having the spiritual scars that go with fighting demons and mental, psychological scars, he actually, of course, is going to get physical scars as well. All right, I am just dumping everything in terms of like my thought process on this book here. All right, so people also liked this scene. So you can see he's got the hand scar. He's got the little box with the backwards E. You can see this was when he was a kid. And he's still got the G.I. Joes in there and his father's boots that he used to play. He saved his father's boots. And I had a box like this when I was a kid. And I would put stuff in there. And maybe I wasn't this bad, but like the writing was pretty like embarrassing. I think I actually did screw up one of the letters, something along those lines. So he goes in and he has like the other prosthesis and he puts his father's boots on. And this is essentially the point in time where you could tell, okay, he is going to become a soul finder. All right. And fights on the demonic plane. Well, I guess I won't get too into this, but I loved this panel here by Tim. I was a little worried about people, whether they would want more action in this book. But my wife was like, people know you, Doug. They know that you're not going to just have this total action-y book. But I was hoping that the build-up, if I did the focused on the character development throughout, in the mystery, and all of that sort of stuff, that by the time that this page came, that it would pay off. And Tim said, again, I think he may have said this in a stream, and I don't think he would mind this, but this page right here was literally the most complicated in terms of figuring out what he wanted to do or how to make it work that he has ever done, and up until this point in his artistic career. So I was redlining Tim creatively, and I would like to thank him for not punching me in the face or something along those lines. But oh, I guess I'll talk about this. So after he basically breaks Redder at this point, and he says God loathes you, and he's been messing with him for the entire book. And then in the spiritual realm, obviously you can manifest whatever is in your mind to fight against these demons. And because he was a soldier, obviously he is going to manifest weapons of war. But he is so filled with rage that he essentially unloads on Blackfire. But in the demonic realm, when you are filled with rage and anger, then everything is going to, that's exactly what they want. And so all of these bullets then are then thrust back at him. This is another kind of tweak that Tim had in the script. He is unloading here, and he's going cyclic on the, like, basically the barrel is turning white hot. And as the bullets are coming out, I wanted his face to essentially be, he thinks the bullets are going out that way, but with every bullet he shoots, like fragments of his own face were essentially going to be coming off. And he was tearing his own face apart. And Tim turned it into, no, the demon basically just threw back all the bullets at him. And just in the spiritual realm, he is just annihilated. He's torn to shreds by his own bullets, which is, as I've said in public, like, if you live on rage and anger and you let that, you become a slave to rage, it will boomerang on you. And that is exactly what happens. He does not know. He's never encountered this sort of thing before. And he's down for the count. He is just like dazed and confused, and he doesn't know what the heck is going on. And he's just calling for mom. He's calling for his sister. Help me. And you kind of sort of see these, the phantoms of them or whatever, images of them in the background. And then he hears Patrick, and he said, his father's back with hold the line, son. Now in this one, Brett colored this. Obviously I love Brett's colors. I will talk about this in a second. The cross was not highlighted, and I didn't want to bother Brett because he was very busy, and I wanted to be like, the cross needs to be highlighted. And I was like debating whether I should call Brett and say, like, dude, can you please, like, not in a bad way, but just be like, you need to highlight the cross. Tim highlighted the cross. Tim went in there and highlighted it, and then he contacted me. He's like, I felt as though the cross needed to be highlighted, so you knew that it was his father actually speaking. And I was like, yes, this is why you are on the team. Because I knew that he was on the same page, and he would be thinking, again, this is where Tim, being a practicing Catholic, he would think of stuff like this. And my wife was saying, in anime, a lot of the times, if the character's face is hidden like this, it's a bad guy. And she's like, I don't know if he should have had his helmet on in this particular scene. I think he probably should have had it off. And I was like, that's a good point. So, but I was okay with it, particularly since Tim highlighted the cross. So you knew that it was actually his father. This is not Blackfire speaking. And so once we see the cross, We know that it is his father. And then he begins this Latin prayer. So Blackfire says, "You lose, priest." And he begins this prayer. Now he can manifest the same exact weapon. This is a little Green Lantern-ish, a little Matrixy, but he's in the spiritual realm. He is saying the Latin prayer. His heart and his mind, his body, his spirit is in the right place. And if you are spiritually in line with the truth and love, then you can manifest a weapon that will actually destroy the demons. And so that is exactly what he's doing here. So then he starts to tear the demon to shreds. He continues with this exorcism prayer. This is a real exorcism prayer. And the demon says, this is also important: we don't need a full possession to own a soul. She has free will, and none of your prayers will overcome it. Her soul will be ours. Okay, so again, you don't need to have a full possession of someone. And he's saying, you could get rid of me all you want, but if the person, they have their own free will. If they choose not to believe in God, then there's only so much your prayers are going to do. Sorry. And so he disappears. Boom. He's back. Now these panels right here were initially just sort of black and white, and it was a dark room, and the way that it was lit was going to be a very specific way. But I really liked what Tim did here. But Brett, he just, again, I gave all these guys a lot of creative leeway to do what they thought would work, and he kept it in this sort of like spiritual, I don't know, like spacey, almost like a Doctor Strangey, metaphysical, I don't know what you want to call it, realm. These sorts of colors. Boom. And his mom is there, and she's obviously, again, she is dying. She is going to die. And then Brett, this is one of my favorite panels, the way that he lit this. His mom passes away. And from the way that she passes away, you would get the impression that she, in her final moments before death, was reconciled with God. And he also, the anointing of the sick is here. He says, I like the chuckle after, if they choose not to believe in God. Yeah, I sometimes have to be careful. I don't want to get into too much of the theological stuff. But anyway, so you are led to believe that in her final moments, as she expires, she is right with God. And but we may explore this in the next installment. Okay, so epilogue. So obviously Father Redder's sister was not there when his mother died, so that is going to cause more friction between them. You see Father Redder's father, Paul Redder, his gravestone that says burns in hell. I think initially in the script it said something like, pig, and something else. I forgot what I wrote. And then Tim's like, well, how about like burn in hell? And I was like, yeah, that's cool, whatever. Whatever works for that. So you can see that this cult of Blackfire or somebody, they have a thing against Redder now. And they have gone to the gravestone and they have messed with the gravestone, and they're further rubbing it in his face. And Father Redder says this doesn't make any sense. We've already covered this. This is when you can see that he is now in his Soulfinder garb, the Marines inspired dress uniform, clerical uniform, and he becomes Soulfinder 79. So there's this gets into, gets the 007, the sort of there's a ranking to these people as well that we could explore further in the next one. And then this is a very late addition to the script. Rusty says, sorry, I missed the beginning. No problem, man. And we were like, okay, well, I thought that the message was basically clear, but Tim's like, no, you gotta you gotta put a bow on it a little bit for people that are just like, well, why do bad things happen to good people? And I like things a little bit more open-ended and people to mull it over. And I think this is a good idea on Tim's part. And he's like, no, man, you got to tie it up a little bit. So if somebody doesn't get it and they don't want to think about it, you can just give it. You can basically give it to them here. And so then Father Crane says, so Chua says, lots of pain, suffering, sorrow, and death brought us to this point. And then Crane says, yet when we properly fulfill our role, a greater good springs forth from all forms of darkness. Many men allow pain to be the death of their soul. We see pain as a source of its life. I think that is a nod to von Balthasar, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I think that is from my readings on von Balthasar as well. So, so the idea is that we have our free will. We can do bad things. We can do good things. But people that continue to search for the truth, people that continue to try and focus their energies in terms of loving one another, true love, greater good comes from whatever darkness enters into the world. Truly good people acting in concert with God can make greater good spring forth from that. And so it's all part of a sort of mosaic. You don't get to see, you're like a little shard in God's mosaic. And you, from your point of view, you're just like a little tiny dot. You don't have a God's eye point of view of everything. You're just like, boop. You're just like a dot. You do not know. But if you were to zoom out and zoom out and zoom out, and you were actually trying to be a good person, and you were doing what you were meant to do with your life, you would see your impact on the full, the portrait that is life or existence or being here on this plane. And so that is essentially, in many ways, what we are trying to get across with this. And so, like I said earlier, Father Redder says we need to stick together. So this envelope, I didn't get into this, but there was a picture of Officer Chua at his graduation from the academy, but also a picture of the newspaper clipping of Father Redder's, his dad's death, which we could explore in other installments. The implication being that people are watching him, and the same thing that happened to Paul Redder in terms of dying at the hands of a traffic stop could very well happen. Some sort of calamity or death could actually happen to Chua if he doesn't get into line. So, or leave the demons alone, or whatever you want to say. So Father Redder says we should stick around, may God be with you. And then again, this is where Tim added, be sober and watch, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, goeth about seeking whom he may devour. And there we go. And like I said, we covered the art of Soulfinder. And that, I think, is the, I guess we could stop with the director commentary. Now, I bet you never thought you would see a priest putting a woman in a fulcrum choke in a church. But so yeah, if any feminists are reading Soulfinder, they'd be like, wow, Doug really has a thing. Father Redder's mother dies from ovarian cancer. His sister, he doesn't have a good relationship with her. It's a troubled relationship. Charlotte is demonically possessed. The librarians, they're into the occult. Let's see. The one guy's mother was divorced. And what else? And Charlotte is given a fulcrum choke. And this lady right here calls the cops on him. And but I didn't. But ultimately, Charlotte actually turns back. She turns away from the demon. The mother that got a divorce. She is you could tell that she is a very good mother. She wanted the best for her son. Obviously, Father Redder's sister. Everybody has a complicated relationship. And Father Redder's mother, like I said, in her final moments, She was reconciled with God as far as I'm concerned as the author. And so, yeah, it just sort of worked out that way. But when I first saw that, I was like, oh, man, feminists are going to have a field day with Father Ratter putting her in the UFC-style chokes or whatever. But anyway, let's see here. But that, in a nutshell, is my thoughts on Soulfinder Demons Match. Let's see. Mike McNulty says, reminds me of a homily I heard years ago that as long as one has the light of God within them, they could venture into the blackest darkness without fear. Hey, Mike, are you reading my second script before I've shown it to anyone? Have you hacked into my computer? Although if you want to read the first script, I could send it to you. But the second one, like I said, has to deal with the ocean and going into the depths, the darkest depths of the ocean. There's a submariner. So you can kind of see where I'm going with all that. And what is Charlotte's story? Well, like I said, it's definitely after 10:30 right now, and I won't get into all of it. But if you want a copy of the book, maybe we'll explore Charlotte a little bit more later. But if you watch the whole stream, I kind of talk about Charlotte. And people that even if you are a Christian or you are a practicing Catholic, it is possible to still have just because you have faith, it doesn't mean you never go through bouts of spiritual, questioning or whatnot. Everybody has to struggle with their own faith. They have to ask themselves tough questions. It would be really sad if you had faith and you did not welcome people challenging that faith. It should be able to undergo the strictest, very, like I said, go through the gauntlet, go through the blast furnace of debates and all that sort of stuff. And you want your faith to be like a diamond. You want to be put under pressure and that sort of thing. So, but everybody has questions. And maybe Charlotte just had, she had her moment of time where she wasn't sure about her faith. So yeah, but anyway, thank you to everybody that tuned in to the stream tonight. I really appreciate it. Like I said, I am heading to the Philippines in the very near future. I will be back in not late January, but I'll just surprise you as to when I'm coming back. But let's see, to some faith weightlifting. Yeah, actually, I talked about that with my wife in many ways. So spiritually, I guess Gurney and I will talk about this. So if anyone who's into working out, when you work out, you exert yourself to your limits. I actually think I have a partially torn rotator cuff. Cannot get an MRI until January 22nd, which is really frustrating. But I have an MRI coming because my shoulder is killing me. Anyway, you push yourself to your limits physically, mentally, you push yourself to your limits. And when you do that, like you've seen people when they're pushing themselves so hard, when like marathon runners or whatever, they're basically on the verge of tears. They collapse when they cross the finish line. That's how you grow. And so spiritually, you should be doing the same exact thing. You can hurt yourself lifting weights. You could tear your rotator cuff. When you push yourself intellectually, you get mentally drained as well. And if you don't get sleep, and then that affects things, those sorts of things. And so I've always said that you want to push yourself in the very same way. You should basically be on the brink of tears, trying to push your spiritual limits and in spiritual growth as well. And you just will break in different ways spiritually, usually in terms of tears and emotion. But that's actually a very good thing. So if you are searching for God and you find yourself in tears, most likely you're on the right track. We'll just put it that way. So let's see. It's called spiritual food and likened to water. Yeah. So you will like leg kick the next one. Adam Friendon, take care. It says take care. Good night. Take care, Adam Friendon. I appreciate it. So alrighty, and we see there's Redder's scar made it onto the cover. Anyway, again, thanks to everybody that tuned in tonight. I really appreciated it. Appreciated it. I need to get some sleep. And I will be back in the near future, hopefully. And if I get some good pictures from the Philippines, I will try and send them, but I will generally be off the grid. Dude, be safe in the Philippines. Stephen Paddock's girlfriend is walking around freely there. Haha. But seriously, be safe. Godspeed. Yeah, no, hopefully we'll be safe. Shadow King says, have a great vacation. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Gurney, we got that. Uh-oh. Let's see what we got here. Why is my thing not turning up? Spiritual weightlifting. So again, thanks to everyone, and I will see you in the near future. Again, see you later. Bye.